Shit Talker, episode 2012, 1013, shelters, and how they take advantage of the poor. Today we're going to talk about how St. Vincent, I've already said, Father Joe, the biggest pimp in San Diego. And now I'm going to actually find out how this biggest pimp works, pimping off the backs of the poor. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first things first, one of the things that they do is every day for 4 days out of the week, you have to do a 2-hour chore. It does not matter when the chore is, you have to do it. If you miss 1 day of 2-hour chore, you have to make it up doing 4. You have to do it. You have to make it up doing 4 hours. At that point, in your first 90 days there, you have to take basically a test, letting them know whether or not you graduated high school or anything like that, and that comes from actually the San Diego City College, which then they get credit for saying that they're educating the people. The thing of it is that the courses are not courses. They're not anything that you can get credits applied to.
What? I thought they were actually educating the people.
No, they're not actually educating anybody. The classes there are anything but something to learn with. They're Microsoft Word classes, they're computer courses, anything like that.
They don't have those?
They do have them, but they're not knowledgeable enough for you to take those skills and use them for a job.
But yet they're getting donations for that.
They're getting credit from the state for giving you classes.
So they're getting money?
Yes. The food that is given to them is mostly spoiled. It is basically unhealthy. Everybody that works in the kitchen is either not for hygiene or anything like that.
For real?
For real. They do a mass thing of food handlers preparation, which they give you the answers during the whole food handlers course, so everybody passes the test so they can work in the kitchen. Even if you don't know how to read and write, they'll have somebody write it down.
Yeah, I know. I've seen some people in there that are just mentally disabled.
Yeah, and they will write down the answers and get you the food handler's card through the county.
What? So they cheat?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's the word I have to quit using. To say it
the next thing is a lot of the donations that come in, like from either Pepsi or Tide or a lot of like other little small groups and things that donate gift cards or stuff for the families. The staff always has first picks of them.
Yeah, it's like that. I noticed that in a lot of shelters. Did you know if you have a shelter, you can become a millionaire within a year?
Yes.
I found that stuff out when I was in Michigan.
A lot of the times, if you do not finish the classes or program courses, that you basically, they will kick you out for not doing the program. A lot of the times then, when you go onto their long-term side, at that point, they say they have to go by HUD guidelines. What happens is they sit there and tell you that you have to pay 30%, which is the HUD guidelines. So 30% out of your paycheck or anything like that. Now, people with SSI cannot stay there more than 6 months.
Why?
Because what happens is the rest of the money that they do is they put that aside and put it in their banking account.
So that they can get the interest.
So they can get the interest, which you never get back. You don't get that interest. You only get the money that you put in.
Right.
Because once they start saving it, it builds up to a certain amount that they have to kick you out. If
Once they start saving it, it comes that they have. Oh, I get it.
basically, what happens is, let's say there's a cap that you can only have so much in
But so
for
by
the
your
SSI. For SSI, let's say that SSI only lets you have $1,500 in the bank. Okay, what happens is if you get up to $1,500, they'll cut you off of SSI. So what happens with St. Vincent de Paul, once you get up to that amount where your cap is at, they will sit there and give you an exit date. So if you're on SSI,
but it's their fault that you're becoming.
that's how it works for them for SSI. If you work, if you are fortunate to get a job and work and collect a paycheck, what happens is that you have 2 years to stay in the program. But the success rate of finishing that program is maybe 10%.
Why people don't finish?
Here's the reason why, is that they start going and saying that, well, let's get a basis of the program. If you're working, you pay 30% out of your paycheck. The rest of it goes into a savings.
So they take all your money?
They take all your money because
But what if you need underclothes or shoes?
they say they provide that.
Whoa, go ahead, girl.
They say they provide that. So what happens at that point is they take all your money. Now, a success of completing the program is that you finish the 2 years there in the long-term side, then you move out and get your own place. You do not get all your money back at that point. You get it in installments. If you get a place...
Wait, they control you like that?
Yes. If in the first 6 months you have a place, they'll give you part of your money to get the place. Then you have to stay in that stable area for another 6 months to get the second installment of your money. In 12 months of staying, or another 6 months, you'll get the third installment of your money, of being in a stable environment. What they do not say and tell you is that if you move from the resident you were at, that's considered being unstable. Say if your landlord or the company sells the apartment building and you have to move, whether it's your fault or not, that's not completing the program.
So if you find a better place that's cheaper than where you are, you can't move.
No.
They actually control people like that. I knew this nigga was a pimp, but goddamn.
So what happens is now, if you do not complete the program, any of the money that you have put in the savings, you do not get that.
What?
You do not get that money back.
Okay, but before I turned this on, you were saying that if you stay there, you have to do what they say. So it's not giving you the ability to do what you need to do because you're doing what they say.
Exactly.
How does that work?
Basically, at that point, if you don't do any of the classes, if you don't do any of the chores, if you don't do any of that...
Okay, but what if you have a job and you're going to school?
You still have to do the chores. You still have to do the chores. They will sit there, and you have to do 16 hours.
So it's like you're a slave.
Pretty much.
A slave that's giving them your funds.
Correct.
So they're even a slave master that governs your finances.
Yes.
Whoa.
Here's the topper of it. When the veterans have the stand down.
What's a stand down?
Stand down is basically when they have the tents and stuff like that over at San Diego High for the veterans and stuff like that they can get all their medical.
Okay.
For the homeless vets. What happens is St. Vincent de Paul gets about $1,500 from the VA for each veteran they house.
Hold on a minute. I don't have your face on here, but I do have your body. But I make sure I get nobody's faces because what we're going through, it's like, to me, it's like it's something private. Yes. I know.
Basically, a week before stand down, you have to make sure that you have everything completed because they are looking for anyone and everyone to throw out because they want to get as many veterans as they can into those beds.
They get more money, don't
they?
they?
Get more money from them.
But what I don't understand is why does a veteran go to the shelter when these veterans who are that are alcoholics are going into these stores and buying the alcohols from Vietnamese and Iraqis, and these are the ones that the veterans were going to fight. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the countries that the countries that America was sending these so-called veterans to fight, they come over here and they have room and board and finances and businesses. But when the veterans come back, they go into shelters. And St. Vincent de Paul will find any and everybody, even people with babies, to throw out so that they can get these veterans and get this more government money.
And then
wow.
the veterans, and even the veterans have a limited stay there. They basically kick them out every 6 months too. I can watch
wow.
it. You want to do a trick?
That's funny.
I'm out. We need to get going and get some cigarettes, don't we?
And I want to thank you too. I want to thank you for giving me this information because people do need to know this. People need to know what is actually happening because we're in such an illusion that we can see homeless people, but we don't. And everybody knows about Father Joe. And the name of the shelter again? St. Vincent de Paul.
St. Vincent de Paul.
Everybody knows about that, but everybody thinks that he actually has a high success rate, even in his commercials.
No, he has not a high success rate. In fact, most of the people that go there end up returning there.
Wow.
It is something that if you're looking to move on and do something for yourself, it's not the place to go. They keep you there because that is a returning number that they can get money for.
That's kind of like jail. It's like a revolving door.
Exactly. And the sad thing is that man owns he owns properties under a fictitious name.
Yeah, I heard that one.
He owns basically his culinary school that he has. He does that. He uses the students to cook for his benefit.
So he's actually a slave master.
Yes.
In 2012.
Yes.
And before, but this is 2012. He's a slave master.
Yes.
And the poor becomes his slaves, thinking
that
and assuming that this is a program that is going to help them further themselves.
Correct.
Wow. Well, we know about the little pimp, Father Joe. I always called him a pimp. You're pimping off the backs of the people. You're a pimp. And it's a Catholic church. Hidden in the word Catholic is CIA. Pay attention to that. And this
Father Joe's not a father anymore, right?
No, I didn't know.
No, he only puts on the collar for the commercials.
Oh my goodness! So he's a perpetrator too.
Yeah, he is no longer.
He's a pimp and a perpetrator.
Yeah, he's no longer.
Why not? What happened that he's not?
I don't know. I don't know, but I.
But he's still under the Catholic charity stuff.
He's not part of Catholic Charities. That's a different program. He's part of the St. Vincent de Paul, but because St. Vincent de Paul is across the United States.
Yes, I know.
So basically, at that point, he's no longer a father.
I saw like they had a hotel too the other day, St. Vincent Manor or something.
They have Harvey Mandel. Father Joe owns a lot of the senior little communities around here. Not only that, he owns...
So Father Joe is actually a criminal, a legalized criminal.
He's also on the council of Petco Park. He was one of the ones that helped build Petco Park during that whole big scandal. He was one of the ones...
Where you had to get rid of all the homeless?
Yeah, and tear down all the places and everything else. He is a board member for Petco Park and the Padres. Also, he's on the board of directors and stuff for the San Diego Chargers.
We just pimping. SH3LT3RS. Well, that's the end of this little episode. Well, I thought it was. Go ahead.
He has tons of, he has a property management company that is under a fictitious name of him that I researched and found. Basically the studio that's right next door to Sam and Hawk.
I noticed they built that, and they built that off the backs of the poor. I knew that. I knew that.
That is under a different property management, but he is one of the owners of that.
That's one of the transition places that you go to.
Right, which is funny because at that point, they do it, if that's supposed to be a low-income place, they do a credit check on you and everything else. You cannot have the one, especially next door to St. Paul, you can't have any felonies, you can't have any felonies, no bad credit, you have to make 3 times your rent, and that is supposed to be a low-income place, and the cheapest place there is about $1,500.
Wow. It's like I'm at a loss for words on that one. Wow. Yeah, that's the end of this episode. Should have called it episode. What that nigga name is again?
Father Joe?
Yeah, Father Joe the Pimp. That nigga pimpin'. And this is Shit Talker out. Wow.